Ever wondered what it's like to do a river cruise on the mighty Mississippi? Believe us, it's no ordinary cruise because it's no ordinary river, and we certainly weren't on any ordinary boat. You're going to love what we're going to show you. We travelled to the deep south to see what all the hype was about, and we joined the river at the birthplace of rock and roll, and finished where he meets the sea at the birthplace of jazz. And we're going to show you this incredible voyage right now as we sail on board the world's largest, and arguably the prettiest riverboat, American Queen. In this second part of the series, we're going to discuss what life is like on this floating homage to the deep south, and talk about the accommodation, the entertainment, the food, and much, much more. Let's go.
We'd like to talk a little bit about what it was like to actually be on the ship.
The itinerary is a big thing for this, but obviously what drew us there in the first place was the ship. We're going to call it a ship.
Yeah.
It's a steamboat. Sorry, American Queen voyages. Yeah. We'll talk about entertainment first.
For the size of ship, the entertainment was phenomenal, wasn't it?
It was.
So much live music. I mean, as you've probably gathered by now, we like music. So to have so many amazing musicians on board.
Yeah. One of the standouts for me was the guitarist on board. He was phenomenal. He was he did like a little solo slot pre-dinner, and he played with the band in the evening.
Well, they were a duo, weren't they? Jay and Logan, and I can't remember which was which, which is awful. But those two together did a lot of the sort of evening entertainment, and they were amazing.
They did.
So
he was phenomenal. I mean, I my big love in music was guitar, and you know, over the last 40 years, I've seen guitarists and I've appreciated guitarists. You know, to see someone work on a ship with that kind of talent was just blew me away.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the outstanding things out of the whole thing. American Queen's very lucky to have him. I hope he's still on there because he was just brilliant.
That duo did a lot of the entertaining in the engine room bar, which was at the back of the ship.
The engine room bar was fabulous.
Yeah, and it was where you'd go sort of, it was the last place really to have entertainment in the evening. So after dinner and after a show or whatever, it was where you'd
grab your glass of bourbon and you'd go in there and it'd be blues all the way.
Yeah, and it was fabulous. At the back of behind where they were playing were these windows that looked out onto the paddle.
Yeah,
so
they floodlit the paddle wheel, didn't they?
So the backdrop was just the paddle wheel going round and the water and everything.
The atmosphere.
And it was,
It's atmospheric.
It was our favourite venue on
Definitely, bar none.
That engine room bar, there was a little door to the side and you could go down that door and go into the engine room.
You could go in the engine room, yeah.
Any time of day, so you could go down middle of the night, whenever you want.
The engineers down there.
The crew down there were amazing.
They were so friendly and inviting. You know when you get these kind of heritage railways where they've got steam engines and they're enthusiasts, they want to show you their steam engine. This is the same thing. They were working down there in unbelievably hot conditions. I mean, we went outside and it was like 90 degrees outside. You go down there, it's another 20 or 30 degrees, I'm sure of it.
The steam,
unbelievably so hot. But they're down there and they want to show you the place. And you can go outside right by the paddle wheel.
Onto the sort of
onto the decking.
Boards,
onto the decking there.
Yeah. So you can stand right beside the wheel and watch and feel the spray coming off of the,
absolutely,
of the wheel.
Which is not very nice because the Mississippi's certainly when you get to near New Orleans, you don't really want to be ingesting that kind of water, perhaps. But you know, apart from that, you know, you can see the big pistons at work driving the wheel. Fabulous.
That was one of our favourite places.
But we wandered off entertainment a bit, but that actually is accessible, like say, from the bar.
It's part of the entertainment.
It is. It is.
Because it's off of the bar.
Yeah. Further, well, it was like midships, wasn't it? Theatre, almost like midships. mid-boat.
Yes, it was. It was in front of the engine room bar, wasn't it?
The theatre on board is fantastic. It's beautifully designed and very, very retro. And because we were in one of the suites, we had a private box, didn't we?
Yeah.
Which was fabulous. And Adam would just bring us drinks. In fact, he would have the drinks waiting for us. He'd say, you know, the show's about to start. Let me take you to your box. Our favourite cocktails would be there waiting for us. It's just incredible. Absolutely incredible.
So there was a full 5-piece band that played every night. There was 4 singers, and one of them was our cruise director. And they led the entertainment most nights, didn't they? Sometimes Jay and Logan would do it, and there was another pianist on board called John who sometimes did stuff. But most of the night it was them, and they were usually themed, so it might be a jazz night, it might be a tribute night, so they might sing songs from, you know, Elton John and things like that, or West End or Broadway or whatever. So yeah,
fabulous,
it was really good entertainment for the size of ship. Really
good, and every night as well. Every night.
Yeah.
And I have to mention John, because you didn't mention that's John, right?
Well, John was in the captain's bar most of the time.
John was in the captain's bar most of the time, doing pre-dinner and sort of post-dinner, sort of noodling on the piano. Now, John wasn't our cup of tea, okay? But it was crowded. You know, he always had the place full, didn't he?
Well, the captain's bar is a little bar that's just outside the restaurant.
It's a tiny little, like, hole in the corner of the...
Yeah. We found it a little bit of a weird venue, really.
Yeah.
But John was, he was a musician and a singer and a pianist, but also a storyteller.
Yeah.
So
he did all this kind of combined stuff, didn't he?
Well, you had to buy into the whole evening, because he'd start telling a story through music and piano, and it would go on.
He kind of crooned and story told and kind of noodled and did all this kind of weird stuff.
It was amazing, really.
And he, like I say, as long as we always had alternative stuff to see and listen to, so we always went off the more kind of rock, jazz, blues end, whereas John was more the sort of like, you know...
Crooner.
He was the crooner. He was like, let me tell you the story about the other night when I was on the... and we drank until 5 a.m. Drank until 5 a.m. Drank we did. It was like that kind of thing, wasn't it?
What it was like.
It was like... I'm not getting this at all. So, well, I'll tell you what, he had a crowd every time. And people loved him. They absolutely loved him.
Yeah.
They absolutely loved him. So that was John.
Yeah.
And I'm sure John's a regular on there.
We tended to, pre-dinner, rather than going down to the captain's bar, because we found it sort of a quite sort of strange area, we tended to go to the deck outside, didn't we? So there, at the front of the ship was this lovely sort of shaded outdoor terrace. And we tended to go there, grab a drink, sit in the little swing chairs. So that was our sort of favourite place,
But it was always too damn hot.
It was quite hot, but...
at that time.
It was nicely shaded, though, so that was where we tended to go. The other entertainment on board was this lovely lady called Chrissy, who was what they call their Riverlorian. And there's always a Riverlorian on board. And she used to do little talks up in the chart room, which she would tell about the history of the ship and the history of the river and all sorts of things. And she would also lead you on sort of bridge tours. So you could go, if you signed up for one of her talks, at the end of the talk, she'd take you up to the bridge, the wheelhouse. And you could have a look at where the ship was being driven from.
Did Adam take us up there?
Adam took us up there as well.
Up there, and it was fabulous. We met the captain.
Yeah.
And we had a lovely chat with the captain, and we went and just sat in the wheelhouse and watched the world go by and watched the captain do his stuff.
Yeah.
It was fabulous. And they've got a whole little mini village up there, haven't they? So you've got the captain's office, and then you've got the captain's accommodation and the second officer or the staff captain or whatever they have on there. In summary, entertainment, absolutely fabulous. Couldn't go wrong. With regard to other bars, there was one other place called the Mark Twain Room, I think it was. Beautifully adorned room, lovely furniture, lots and lots of artefacts about Mark Twain, lots of curios and things in cupboards and cabinets and all these little details that you could just spend hours looking at. But the Mark Twain Room, as beautiful as it was, we never sat in it.
No.
We never sat in it. It was in the middle. You had a mezzanine over the restaurant, so there was no sort of like windows outside. There was no outside verandas or anywhere to go and go outside and stand or anything like that.
But I think that was because we had such a lovely suite with our own sort of sitting area and our own outdoor area. I think if we hadn't had that in our suite, we probably would have gone and sat in those rooms a lot more. Yeah,
we probably would have done.
And then there was one other bar which was at the back of the ship outside near the pool and the gym, which had the
the steam
caliper,
whistles. The what do they call it?
Khalifa?
I can't remember what they call it now.
Yeah.
The steam whistle organ, as
Yeah.
I would call it.
Which was played every day.
It was, and boy, it was loud.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it was loud.
So every day as we left port, someone, either John or Jay, would go out there.
It was
and would
mostly
play.
John, to be fair.
Yeah.
He'd come out and play a few tunes, and well, normally it stayed away, like you say.
Yeah. And that bar, unfortunately, I think because it was so hot, they didn't really open that bar very much.
I think it was the heat.
Which was a real pity, because it was a lovely
Yeah.
bar.
I think it was the heat, because no one used the swimming pool either.
No.
And it's a lovely little sort of dip pool up there with a little sunbathing area, but it was so hot.
Yeah.
And you've got to remember, this wasn't usual. It was
No.
it was a heat wave, a sort of once in every few years heat wave, I think, at that time of year, and it was just too hot. In fact, when it gets really hot down there in the southern states, they move the itinerary up.
Yes.
To the northern part of the Mississippi, where it's not so hot.
I think we were on the penultimate voyage of the season.
Yeah.
After the one after us, they were then moving up to the north part of the river. Unusually, most of the accommodation, most of the rooms are accessed via the promenade deck. So you actually access them from the outside, which means obviously they don't have private balconies. There's a few with private balconies that are on the lower deck, but not many. So most of them don't have private balconies. So there are chairs outside your room, and it's quite a communal.
Open.
Yeah, you go and sit outside your room, and your neighbour's sitting
And you're like, hi.
on the promenade with you. So it was not. I mean, like Richard said, it was so hot when we were there. It was quite
Very few
difficult.
people were sitting outside.
But it's quite nice to sort of create that very informal, friendly.
And I think that's the traditional design of that ship.
Yeah.
Of paddle boat steamers. They don't have balconies.
The rooms they're not massive. They're quite small rooms, but they have got lots of storage. They're really well appointed. They're really, like we say, the decor is really authentic. It's really nice. Everything was very comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, the beds, the bed in our suite was amazing, wasn't it? So, yeah.
But if you're expecting modern cruise ship amenities and stuff, this probably going to disappoint you, because it is very traditional.
Yeah, it's very traditional
And
inside.
it's
Dark woods and floral wallpaper, and yeah.
It's like being in a Mark Twain novel, basically, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it really is. And more about Mark Twain later. But
Yeah.
So we were exceptionally lucky that American Queen gave us the Mark Twain suite.
Yes.
Speaking of Mark Twain, we didn't start off with the Mark Twain suite. We had a standard veranda room.
Yeah.
And when we got to the room, we saw a little note on the door saying, "You have been moved."
Yeah.
And we thought, oh. So we picked it up, and it said room 501, I think it said, didn't it? And it's like, okay. So we bumped into someone called Adam, didn't we? And he said, "Oh, you've been moved to 501. Let me show you 501. Let me show you 501. So we followed Adam, didn't we? And we went up onto the kind of suite deck, and we thought, this is turning out quite well. And then Adam, who happened to be the butler, he opened up suite 501, which is the Mark Twain suite, and oh my giddy aunt. I mean, we were given one of the two, what they call owner suites, I guess.
Yes, so the two owner suite right at the front of the ship on the sort of top accommodation deck, aren't they?
My goodness.
And it was fabulous. It was amazing.
It was in like a little separate block of 4 suites, wasn't it?
Yeah, like I say, there's not many with a private veranda, but the two owner suites at the front have enormous private verandas, and these smokestacks literally land on your veranda when they come down.
So you have to have your wits about you.
Yeah, we sat out there one night in the dark having a cup of tea, didn't we? And I suddenly thought, feels it's getting a little bit warm. What's going on? And we looked up, and the smokestack were just looming down
sooty
over us.
smokes.
It was quite freaky just to see this massive thing come down where you're sitting. Like, rushed
Huge,
inside for that.
Soot-filled black weird thing looming over our shoulder. So that was quite fun.
As you can see from the footage that we'll show you, we had a lovely large room, lots of storage. I mean, it was just amazing. I still dream of like waking up in the morning, and there was little switches beside my part of the bed where I could just press a button and the blinds would rise up on the windows that we had that went round 2 sides of the room, and just looking out and thinking, I wonder where we are today. See where we were. Richard would make me a lovely coffee from the coffee machine.
Lots of amenities in that room.
Taking the coffee out onto the veranda, sitting on that little rocking chair.
Yeah. And Adam the butler, he couldn't do enough for you. I mean, he was just there all the time, just fetching and carrying. And we were aware that you know, our experience was an exceptional experience in one of the suites, and this is not a cheap cruise either. So, you know, it's not a cheap cruise in a normal room. So when you're in the top suites, it's an expensive cruise.
Yeah.
And that fact wasn't lost on us. I mean, we were like, I can't believe we get to spend 7 nights in here. This is just incredible. And it's going to feature in a future video about very expensive suites. So, because it's actually different. It's different to the other ones we've stayed in. You know, it's still very traditional.
Yes.
Very well appointed, beautiful, beautiful bed. Loads of, I mean, so much storage space. You could literally sleep in the storage space, not bother with the bed.
Yeah.
But it's very, very different to anything else we've stayed in.
Yeah.
So yeah, wait for that one, because that's going to be good.
So the food? So it's not open dining on the American Queen. There were 2 sittings for dinner. One at 5:30 and one at 8. And we were on the 8 o'clock sitting. We had a lovely little table for 2 by the window.
We did. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
But what that meant was that we would go to the show and the port talk before dinner. There was always a port talk every day where our wonderful cruise director would sort of go over where we were going to be, what the stops were going to be, so you could sort of plan what you wanted to do the next day, and then a show, and then we did dinner. Obviously, if you were on the early dinner, then it would be the other way around. You'd have your dinner, then you'd go to the port talk, then you'd go to the show. So that was the way the sort of evening panned out. I was pleasantly surprised because I don't particularly like smoky food. I'm not a massive meat eater, so I was a little bit worried that I might not enjoy the food, but actually there was quite a range of options. The food was nice. Every evening it was a la carte menu with sort of 3 or 4 choices for each course.
Yeah, I ate every single thing. I absolutely loved the food, but it's very different. It's very of the region, like you say. It's American cuisine.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. And thankfully we had 2 lovely sort of servers throughout the whole voyage.
They were brilliant,
and
weren't they?
one of the girls got quite used to us saying, "So what is this?
What does that mean? What does that mean?"
Can you describe that?
Because people often think that, you know, the British and the American, everything about us is very, very similar, but it's not actually. There's a few differences there that I've certainly not experienced before. I mean, biscuits and gravy is one of the things.
So we have to say a shout out to Jasmine, who was our main server, and Shelley, who helped her. They were such a laugh.
They really made the evening meal just shine, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, they're just so lovely.
But yeah, they were a scream. We used to go down there and look forward to seeing them and know that we'd have a laugh with them. So that was dinner. The restaurant was always open as well for breakfast and lunch.
Yep.
More of a sort of buffet. There was a buffet laid out of breakfast and lunch, although there was also a menu that you could choose food from as well. So, but we tended to go for the buffet.
And I've got to say, the breakfast was superb every single day.
Yeah.
They learnt how you like your eggs and stuff like that, and they just spot on every time.
Yeah.
I mean, really, really good.
The other option for dining was the front porch, which we were talking about earlier, where there was a bar where you can go and get a drink. There was always a buffet.
There was a buffet out there, which is, again, same cuisine, but it was just serve yourself.
It was more limited. There was more limited, and in the evening it was still a buffet.
Yeah.
So it was open breakfast, lunch, and dinner every evening.
But it was packed.
Or every day.
It was packed every day, Helen. People loved it.
We sometimes went there for breakfast.
We're not big eaters, so when we do eat, we like to enjoy the kind of occasion of it, I think. And a buffet is great when you're in a hurry or you've got things to do and you're very, very busy. You're just like, right, I'm going to grab a sandwich, woof it down and then get out. When you're on holiday, for us, it's like enjoying the occasion of eating, isn't it?
I also think with the front porch, there was a few indoor tables, but most of the tables were out on the front porch.
Yes.
And as we've already said, if it had been cooler, we possibly would have eaten there more and taken our food out onto the front porch.
Because they would open the door and like this hot air would rush in.
So there were your 2 main dining options. I think there is also sort of a grill at the pool bar that we were just talking about.
That wasn't open all week, was it? And I think it was due to the heat. They did some fabulous desserts, actually. And all the desserts were sort of small, almost like bite-sized desserts, so you couldn't help trying every single one every single day.
Oh, and in the little front porch buffet area as well, there was always popcorn available 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
An ice cream machine, cookie station.
And a cookie station.
And you could just go and help yourself to them whenever you wanted. And they were lovely, weren't they? Different cookies came out at different times of the day, and the ice cream was like self-service.
Yeah, really good. If you love American cuisine, you're going to absolutely love it because there were some really nice special dishes.
And there was always wine with the meals. The wines were always generally quite good, weren't they?
Yeah.
So.
It's all good. No, really, really nice.
So overall, our overall experience, let's sum it up.
Right. It's a very special, unique thing. We absolutely loved it. I think the river itself is not the most picturesque river.
No.
It's quite low. There's no sort of stunning scenery. It's not like going down the Douro or down the Danube or anywhere like that. You know, lots of sort of vegetation, but nothing much else to see. There's a very distinct American Southness about it, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to experience that,
it's quite immersive, and like Richard says, there's just a certain flavour to it that you wouldn't get on any other voyage. And you know, and if you do want to explore that part of the world, I think it's probably the best way to see it.
Well, it's one of a kind. I mean, the American Queen is the Queen Mary II of riverboats. It's unique. It's one of a kind. You would say Queen Mary II is a cruise ship. It's not a cruise ship. It's an ocean liner. And I would say American Queen, it's not a river boat. It's just on its own. I don't think it'll ever be made again. I don't think one will be ever made like it. It is unique. Yeah. It's one of those...
It's an iconic ship on an iconic river. Yeah. Visiting some unusual places. And you start off in an iconic place, which is Memphis, for music, and then you finish in New Orleans, which is the iconic place for music. Yeah. And, you know, it wraps it all up so neatly. Yeah. It's just so fabulous. And we really liked that immersion. I mean, most of the crew on board were from
locals.
the region.
Yep.
You know, the food was very regional. It was just a complete sort of immersion in Southern America culture. Downsides, be careful when you travel, because it was very, very hot when we travel, and obviously sometimes the river levels can cause problems, but that's the same on any river cruise at all. So
check with your travel agent anyway, because I think that they will give you advice as to when to go. Another downside is it is a very traditional steamboat. You haven't got all the mod cons in there, of course. You know, running water, electricity, you got all that. But what I'm saying is, you know, if you're looking for a cutting edge stateroom, you're not going to get it, because, you know, it's traditionally designed, traditionally built. The entertainment is very traditional. The theatre is very traditional. The restaurant is beautiful, but very traditional.
It's not contemporary.
It's not contemporary whatsoever. No. But if you want a little piece of history, if you want to live a little piece of history, other than dressing up, which I think would be the ultimate. They had them in the wardrobe, you know, your size, of kind of like gentleman's outfit and lady's outfit for the evening. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? That would be so perfect. You need to know what you're voyaging on. I mean, I think the American Countess, which is one of their newest ships, is slightly more contemporary. If you look at, we haven't been on it, but if you look at the pictures of it, it's almost completely different to the American Queen. And so, you know, they've got the Countess and the Duchess, and they are different again. So if you find the American Queen is too historic for you, then look at the other two ships, because they serve up the same, but with a slightly more contemporary edge, I would say. The other thing is very expensive.
Cost.
Yeah. It's not a cheap holiday.
Look out for deals, really, because like you say, it's not cheap, but I'm sure that if you choose the time of year you want to go and look for deals, you could probably do it on a bit more of a budget. And one thing I have to just say, one of the highlights on the ship for me was one evening when we were in the engine room bar, and Jay and Logan were paying a set, and the security guy Rick, who was the guy that beeped us in and out of the ship every day that we went on and off, he was a bit of a laugh anyway. He came up and played a set on his guitar, and he was outstanding.
It was strange because he's the security guy, so he's the one that beeps you in and out. Before you get to know him, he's very sort of stern, quite serious. Obviously, security guy, you have to be a little bit serious. But he's very sort of like nightclub bouncery, if you like, in an American, in a deep South way. Until you got to know him, and then his humour was very, very dry. And then he got his guitar out. I mean, talk about, you know, hidden talent.
And the passengers just loved it. It was such a funny evening.
And then we had a bit of bants afterwards, didn't we? And the next day, when he was back on the security, we were like, hang on a minute, aren't you supposed to be on the stage?
He had to leave at 9:30 to go to bed, because he had to be up at 5 o'clock the next morning.
Yeah, no, he was brilliant. Well done, Rick. Anyway, if you want to know more about the American Queen, obviously look up the American Queen online, but watch these videos next, because these are the ones we've done before. And we think they're great.
And thank you to American Queen for inviting us on. We had a fabulous time.
We had a wonderful time. Thank you, American Queen Voyages. And yeah, watch these next to continue your journey on the American Queen. Goodbye for now.
Bye.